All right, welcome American Heritage School worldwide students and families. I'm Peter Connect. I'm here at the American Fort campus. Today we're celebrating Constitution Day, and it is a beautiful day. Let's do a little roving camera here. You can see the temple right here in the background of the school, and you can see stations set up. There are 11 of them actually, and we celebrate Constitution Day in grand fashion here at the school. And we wanted to make this available to our worldwide students and families as well. So we've got Jacob Tierlink here. He's the production manager. Let me grab this, flip it around so they can see you. Yes. He's going to be walking behind me today as I go from station to station. We're going to learn from different figures in history, in his story, as we like to say here at American Heritage School. History is Heavenly Father's story of his children, his story. And you can see right now students are coming out from both of these buildings. We've got our high school building over here, and so any of the 9-12 students are coming out of this building. And then we've got our K-8 school here, and the students are just filing out, and they're going to each of these different locations. And they're going to hear about a 5-minute presentation from each of these great presenters. They're dressed up as the character that they're presenting, and have some really neat messages. And so again, we'll be at each of these 11 stations for 5 minutes. It'll be about an hour, and we might even have time in between each of them to just ask them a couple questions. Can you follow me? Is that all right? So we can come over here. I don't know that we'll start here, but this is where our very own Oba Bonner will be presenting Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker, a great African-American inventor from the 1700s. What class do we have here? Mr. Crosley! Guys, I'm so sad I'm not presenting this year. I've got to get a walk around and just film you all though. This is my first year in like 10 years where I haven't presented George Washington, or what else have I done?
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith, yeah. Anyone else? That's it. George Washington, yeah. So you guys are at a 7th grade class, right, at American Heritage School? We're going to stream this to all of our worldwide families and students, so be on your best behavior. We're going to follow you today. Is that okay? Can we follow you? Okay, we're going to hang out with you. This is Oba Bonner here. We just hired Oba as our marketing manager for the worldwide campus. Of course, he's Yehosha's little brother. He says best looking brother, younger brother. So we'll just have a minute here before he gets started, but they'll have to get started quick because they're on a really tight schedule to get 11 in the hour, and then the next group of students comes out
today. Good.
And they have 3 groups. They actually do this 33 times for the next 4 hours. It's exhausting. I've done it 10 years in a row. Not this year though. I actually miss preparing and doing it, but this is important that we share it with you.
And I am from Maryland. Yes, Maryland. I've done many things. One of the things that I've done is someone gave me a clock, just as a gift, and I decided to pick it apart. I picked apart this clock and I thought, you know what? I'm going to rebuild this clock. So I made a wooden clock. And you know what? I love making clocks. I love building clocks. And you know also what I love to do? I love structuring parts of the nation we live in. Who can tell me what the District of Columbia is? Any guesses? The District of Columbia? The District of Columbia is Washington, D.C. I assisted in helping out with the configuration, the spacing, the whole dynamical shape of the District of Columbia. Now, what's important to note is not only was I good at building clocks, not only did I help structure the what? The District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C., I also loved to farm. I loved learning about outer space. I even wrote a book about the planets because I loved it. It just fascinated me. Astronomy. Astrology. It fascinated me. And I wanted I wanted to share it with the world, so I actually published a book about it. Now, I lived in the 1700s, and I was born in Maryland. And as a black man in the 1700s, there was a lot of prejudice and wrongdoing. And I wrote letters with Thomas Jefferson to speak up for injustice. And I thought that was very important, and felt that was very important for the time that I lived in. Now, I want to play a game with you guys. Who has heard of this game, charades? Okay. So what I want to do is I need 2 volunteers. Okay, what is your name, gentleman? Okay, Christopher. And what is your name, my lady? Tia. Okay. Come on up, Tia and Benjamin. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Now, we have 4 pieces of paper in each top hat. And what I want you to do is try to get the audience, your fellow classmates, to guess what is inside the hat. There's 4 words in each hat. You think you can do it? Think you can do it? Okay, here we go. Ready? Begin. So you can describe it, you can act it out.
Oh, okay.
This is your audience.
So, eyeglass. Okay, so. Skibbity. Skibbity. Microscope. Sky.
Did someone say?
Telescope. Microscope.
Okay, circle.
Skibbity. Astronomy. So close. Astrology. No. Astronomy. Planets. Okay. Right. He got it.
Okay, did you guys get them all? Okay, give me some.
not all of
Oh, okay. Let's keep going. How many do you have left?
3 more left.
What is
Time's
this?
up. That means time's up.
Okay, guys, we'll stop there. Thank you so much for participating and learning more about Benjamin Banneker. Enjoy.
You did a great job. Can you say hi to our worldwide
Yes.
students and families?
Hello, American Heritage Worldwide.
The first ding means 1 minute.
Okay.
When you hear that just one ding, and then when she starts going really fast, it means they're supposed to move to the next section. Yeah.
Awesome.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
First
so
one.
happy to be
That's
here.
your first one.
That's the first one.
32 to go.
32 to go. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. 1 down, 32 to go. It's a riot, but it is pretty. Oh, we're moving on to Yehosh Bonner's wife, Vanessa, is doing a presentation for Harriet Tubman. How awesome! Come on.
Bell. Okay, so I am Harriet Tubman, and Harriet Tubman was a remarkable woman. You know, she was brave, she was courageous, and so her story is very fascinating. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit of why they called her Moses, and why, and because of her journey in helping people free. And then if you guys have any questions, then you can ask any question. But Harriet Tubman was one of the 9 children. Harriet was born into slavery under the name Araminta Harriet Ross. Both her parents were West Africans, hailing from the Ashanti warrior people. While many of her siblings were sold and traded to distant plantation, one good fortune for Harriet had was to remain united with her parents throughout her youth. And which is really cool, because what happened is during slavery, they would break the family apart. So the dad can go to this plantation, the mom can go in, and all the kids get separated. But the parents were able to stay together, and Harriet, because she was so young, she was able then to stay with her mother. But then all the other 8 children were just scattered everywhere else. Okay, and so when she was 15, Harriet was accidentally hit in the head with an iron weight and fell into a coma for 3 days. Her brain injury resulted in narcolepsy, a permanent disorder that caused her to fall asleep at random times. And back in the day, if the slaves have any kind of injury, if they were sick or they had some illness, they were not like they were devalued, so they weren't worth as much because they can't do the work that they need to do. So because of that, she wanted to hide that from her masters because she didn't want to be separated from her parents. And at that time, she was only 15 years old. And so, fearing that her enslaver would eventually discover her injury, she decided, like, well, if they find this out, they're gonna get rid of me anyway. So maybe I'm going to run away so I can see what's out there. So she decided to run away to avoid the risk of being sold or traded. So after escaping in 1849, and she was only 15 years old. Think like of being 15 and out there during a time where anybody can catch her, and so Harriet could have stayed in the north, but now that she knew it was possible to escape, she wanted to return for her family and anyone else she could rescue. Over the course of 11 years, she returned to the south 13 times and led more than 70 men, women, and children to freedom and safety via the secret system called the Underground Railroad. Known as a conductor, Harriet never lost a passenger on her journey. Even though it was dangerous, Harriet continually put her life at risk to save others. It wasn't the last time. During the Civil War, Harriet served as an army nurse and went undercover as a spy for the North. Harriet was always looking to help other people. What very little she had, she gave away to others. She lived in poverty most of her life and donated her time, money, and property to people in need. In 2016, the U.S. Treasury announced a historical proposal to change the $20 bill. It would be replaced the longtime face of Andrew Jackson, with Harriet making the first woman on the front of any U.S. paper currency. And so Harriet was also known as Moses. And the reason they call her Moses is because if you know the story of Moses, right? He gathered all his people and was able to take them into safety. So and not only for herself, she was such a selfless woman because she, at 15 years old, made the decision like, I know how to get free, but I'm gonna go and help everybody else get free. And so she wasn't scared. And their time, the journeys were so scary, but she's still. And there's also a movie called Harriet that's on Prime. If you guys go and watch it, it's really cool, and you get to hear and learn about her and her courage. And and one thing I would say is like she beams love. She was just all about love. And so that is Harriet Tubman.
Awesome.
Any questions? No? Yes.
Harriet Tubman lived to what age?
She lived until 1913.
1913. And
Yeah.
she was born?
1822.
1822. Wow, she had a long life.
A long life, yeah. Long journey.
Goodness sake.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really
Thank
impressive.
you.
Thank you. Fun working with your brother-in-law.
I know. You got a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Which one's next?
They're good ones.
So in this one we are, she's actually presenting and representing the Christian founding, the Christian heritage of our nation. It's Nicole Gray.
Hello, welcome. My name is Miss
So she's not presenting from the standpoint of any specific person, just generally our Christian heritage. And the Pilgrims, I think, is specifically.
You're going to stand right here, and you are going to be my new world today. This is representing the new world. All you have to do is just stand right here, okay? So, I'm going to talk about the Pilgrim story, about my story. I grew up in England, and I was a good Christian girl, and I loved God, and I wanted to worship Him in the best way possible. But the Anglican Church, which was in charge, they said, actually, you have to do it this certain way. And I was like, oh, that doesn't make me feel very good. And so with a group led by William Brewster, we actually sailed and we snuck away from England without the king knowing, because it was illegal. And we snuck all the way up to the Netherlands. Does anybody know where the Netherlands is?
Yeah, the Netherlands is like up closer to like, I can't really explain it, but my cousin's on the show.
So cool. What's your cousin's name? I actually know who that is. And we lived in the Netherlands. It's right next to Germany. And we lived there for just a few years. And while we were there, I learned some Dutch, and I got some Dutch shoes. So everybody look at my shoes. These are Dutch clogs. They're made of wood, and they're super good for the outdoors. While we were there, we got to live our religion, and we were so grateful. So is it okay if I teach you a Dutch word? We're going to say thank you in Dutch because we were super grateful, okay? So everybody say along with me. We're going to say dank je wel. Dank je wel. vaarwel, and that means thank you in Dutch. But while we were living there, we knew that that wasn't our home, that wasn't our end spot. We felt called by God to go to the New World. And so, on a foggy morning in a city called Rotterdam, we gathered around a church, we said a prayer, and we set sail to meet up with, where's my boat? The Mayflower in England. And we got aboard and we started to sail. So, you're gonna be my Mayflower, okay? You're just gonna hold this. So we were sailing to the New World and we sailed for 66 days instead of 33. Guess why it took so long? Pirates and storms. And it took forever, but we knew that God was taking care of us and that he was protecting us. Does anybody else know who in scripture sailed across the ocean to the New World and was protected by God? Lehi and Nephi and those guys. So we kind of have similar stories. As we got to the New World, boys, we got to sign a document called the Mayflower Compact. And this compact said our mission. And our mission was undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and the honor of our king and country. Which basically means that our goal is to live our Christian faith and to share the gospel like missionaries do. So, in our settlement, we called it the Massachusetts Bay Colony. You can put that right on top of Ed's head because we made it. We made it to the New World. It's not gonna stay. And we were so excited. And as we lived in our settlement, we had 3 things that we did to honor God. Here are those 3 things. Number 1, we prayed before big decisions. So if a farmer was about to plant his crop, or if our group or our settlement was gonna make a decision, we would come together and we would pray. This is something that we can do too, right? If we're having a big decision, or if we are going to do something scary, we can pray to God too, and he will take care of us. The second thing that we did is we recognized God's help. When we were struggling to plant our food and stuff, the Native Americans came and they taught us how to plant corn and they taught us how to have food. And we saw that as God helping us, and we are so grateful. And that is something we can do today as well. If you are blessed and if you have things that are helping you, you can say, God, I know that you're helping me right now and I'm really grateful for that. And as we do that, as we feel that gratefulness, we'll express it and we'll express our gratitude. After one summer of a really good harvest, we gathered with the Native Americans and we had a 3-day celebration to honor God, to give thanks, and to praise him. Does anybody know what that holiday is called? Thanksgiving, and we still celebrate that today to honor our Pilgrim Fathers and to honor God, because he is the reason that this country was found and founded, and we know that as we honor him in our own lives, he will bless us too. And that is just the coolest thing ever. So, should we practice saying dankjewel? Thank you, Ed. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Dankjewel. And that is how we express gratitude in Dutch. So, you can say thank you too, that's the English version. But I think,
Thank you so much.
how much time do we have?
Let's get a
Are we
close
done?
up on these shoes here.
Slowly? Okay, thank you so much.
Love the shoes.
Hey, thanks, they're authentic.
Where did you get them?
Well, I served in the Netherlands. I lived in the Netherlands for about 1.5 years. Yeah, it's so cool.
Did you serve a mission there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep, so.
We're just streaming to our worldwide students all over the country
Cool.
and outside of the country too.
Yeah, so who
This
would
is
have thought the
Mrs.
Pilgrims
Gray?
made it to, yeah.
I haven't
Mrs.
met
Gray.
you. Are you teaching here now?
I'm an aide.
You're an
so
aide.
I work with the 6th through 8th science and math classes.
Oh, awesome. Well, you did a great job.
Super cool, thank you.
Thank you. You'll notice that the students also are,
Hello.
you've got notebooks, so if you're at home and you want to do the same thing, they take notes as they hear each presentation, and then they present those notes in their class after they go back. Not every class does that, but this middle school level does. Okay, this is one of my favorites. This is the principal of the American Fort campus, Chase Hale, and he is presenting.
There was no official single
George Washington.
Revolutionary War
There's my
sword.
daughter.
We were too poor. And so what did we use? We used leftovers from the French and Indian War mostly, and things we stole from the British. But this is authentic to the period. Okay. All right, gather around, come close, come close.
Oh shoot, that's
Come close.
Can I illegal sword?
All right. My friends in Mr. Cross's class, I have an important thing to read to you before I begin my presentation for you, okay? First,
Is that sharp?
we have learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of almost all men, as soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. Now, these are the words of Jesus Christ, our one true King. And he's basically telling us that most mortal men don't handle power well. But he didn't say all men, he said almost all men. Almost all men. So a question we're going to discuss today is, how did I, George Washington, handle power? And why did that matter? Why was that consequential? Well, I'm going to share with you 3 brief stories. The first one comes from the period between the Battle of Yorktown, where we had that decisive victory, the British surrender, and we're now on a downhill trajectory to resolution of the war. So between that and actual resolution of the war, right in the middle, I get a letter from one of my commanding officers. People are already starting to talk about the new government. And he says this: there ought to be monarchy, and you ought to be the king. Well, how did I react to that proposition? I told him very clearly I could not imagine such a thing, and he should not repeat that to anyone. Story number 2, around the same time, other of my military leaders were starting to get together and talk about the new form of government, and suggested that the military should come in and just take control and establish order. Now, if that happened, who would be the supreme leader of the new government? I'm the leader of the military, so it would be me. Well, I find out about this. I walk in unannounced to one of their meetings, and I explained to them that anyone who was pushing for a military takeover was neither a friend of mine nor a friend of the country. I put a stop to it right away. Last story. After the war is over, and after the peace treaties are signed, King George III, as he's getting his briefings, is told that I intend to resign my commission. That's going to happen. And he responds to that by saying, then by God, sir, he is the greatest man in all the world if he does that. And of course, I did do just that. I resigned my commission in Annapolis, Maryland, handed it back to those who gave me the power in the first place. Now, why does this matter? Let's go back to the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1. Miss Foster, will you please read this out loud for us? The executive power shall be invested in a president of the United States. How many presidents? A president. A president, singular. This is a very short statement. It seems simple, but I assure you this is significant. There were no models for one person having this much power. Can we trust one person with this much power? The Articles of Confederation didn't even have an executive branch. All executive functions were performed by committees overseen by the legislators. Most of the states, if they had executive branches, had executive teams, multiple people who shared that authority. But can we have one who possesses that much power? And will that work? Or will they be corrupted, as is the nature and disposition of almost all men? Many historians suggest today that the example that I provided in how I handled power and how I resigned power is what gave those Philadelphia delegates the confidence they needed to get to this. Short, simple sentence, yet profound. So profound. I, of course, became the first president of the United States. And after 8 years of service, I once again resigned power. And I did for the first time what would be repeated many times thereafter. I facilitated a peaceful transfer of power to the next president. And that has been a safeguard not only to our country, but it has also been a model to the world. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, is that sharp?
It is not sharp. I specifically dulled it, so it wouldn't be sharp. Any other questions?
How do you dull it?
Let me ask you some questions. We've talked a little bit about the Constitution today, Article 2, Section 1. How many articles are there in the Constitution? Who knows? Raise your hand. How many articles? How many articles?
67.
Yeah.
Did it?
No. There are 7 articles in the Constitution.
Oh, and the
In addition to articles, we have one more division or element of the Constitution. We call it an amendment. How many amendments?
27.
Yes. The amendments are broken up into 2 separate categories. What are the 2 categories, and how many are in each?
I don't.
The first is the Bill of Rights, and how many are in the Bill of Rights?
7. 10.
10, which means how many are in category 2?
17.
17. Category 2, so the Bill of Rights was adopted pretty quickly after the first 7 articles were adopted. After the Constitution itself was adopted, we had this quick move to get the Bill of Rights because during the adoption process, many of those delegates in Philadelphia realized this is incomplete. We're missing some important protections for the people from the government. The 7 articles kind of tell us how the government works, but doesn't necessarily put protective limits with respect to individual rights on that government. And that's what the Bill of Rights accomplishes. So they moved very quickly and utilized that amendment process. They moved very quickly to get those 10 amendments in place. And then after that, we've had hundreds of years over which we've had 17 more amendments. All right, any other questions?
How do you dull it?
I used an angle grinder. So fun fact about this sword, there was no standard issue equipment for my military during the Revolutionary War because we were too poor. So what did we use? We used leftovers from the French and Indian War, and we used whatever we could confiscate from the British that we conquered. But this sword is authentic to the period. The D-ring, the wooden handle, the shape, the length, this is all typical of what we would have seen in Revolutionary War times. Okay? But there was no official standard issue sword for my military. Thank you all, you've been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chase, say hi to our worldwide students.
Hello, worldwide students.
They're tuning in.
Welcome to the American Fort campus today. We are so pleased to have you and love connecting with you at every opportunity.
Thank you. Did a great job, George. I think we're moving on to Betsy Ross now. Pretty excited about this one. We've never had Betsy Ross as a presenter.
All right.
Wow.
Welcome to my upholstery shop. I am Betsy Ross, and I am an excellent seamstress, if I say so myself. And it's all thanks to my dear, sweet mother. When I was much younger than you, she taught me how to sew. One day she was looking at my stitches, and she saw how perfectly straight and even they were. And she said to me, "Oh, Betsy, you have a gift. You have a talent. You must nurture it so that someday you can provide for your family, bless your fellow men, and serve God." And that is just what I did. I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked until I became not a good seamstress, but a great seamstress. And my husband John and I opened this upholstery shop together. But then my husband passed away in the Revolutionary War, and I was left to provide for myself. Now, usually that would be a very, very difficult thing for a woman in my day. But I was prepared. I had my talent, and I had my shop. And one day, into my shop came a very, very, very important man. You will never guess who it was. You're a genius! George Washington. He came into my shop with two of his friends. They came to ask me if I would sew a new flag for our new nation. A flag that could unite all of the soldiers who were fighting for our God-given rights, our God-given freedoms. I said, ooh, that's a big task, but I will try. So General Washington showed me a design of what they wanted the flag to look like. It had 13 red and white stripes and 13 stars in a circle for the 13 original colonies. And I looked at that design and I thought, ooh, that's nice. But there is something that I think would make it better. You see, those stars that he showed me were 6-pointed stars. And I thought it would look better with 5-pointed stars. But I was a little worried, a little scared that a man as important and powerful as George Washington would not like it if a woman and a simple seamstress made suggestions on how to improve his design. But then I thought, no. George Washington is a good man. He is humble enough to at least listen to my ideas. So I gathered all my courage and I said to him, General Washington, this is a lovely design, but what would you think if we used 5-pointed stars instead of 6-pointed stars? He said, well, I thought about that, but figured it would be easier to cut and sew 6-pointed stars instead of 5-pointed stars. And I said, well, what would you say if I told you I could cut a perfect 5-pointed star with a single snip of my scissors? He was interested. So I showed him. I took a piece of fabric and I folded it. I folded it and I folded it and I folded it. And then I took my shears and with a single snip, I cut a perfect 5-pointed star. I know, right? Pretty magical. This reminds me of a truth that you may have heard before. By small and simple things are great things brought to pass. You do know that. That's wonderful. So, a single snip of my scissors was a small and simple thing, but it made an entire star. My needle and thread was a small and simple thing, but it made a flag that united a nation for centuries. And when you see that flag waving, I hope that you remember me, Betsy Ross. And when you do, I hope you remember 3 things. First, I hope you remember the lesson my mama taught me, to nurture your talents. Because every single one of you have talents. And if you nurture them, you can provide for your family, bless your fellow man, and serve God. I hope you also remember that by small and simple things,
Great things brought to pass.
yes. And last of all, I hope you remember to have courage, to step up and speak up for what you know to be true, because you never know the good that you can do. I have for your teacher instructions on how to fold and cut a perfect 5-pointed star. So I'll give that to you, and when you have maybe 5 minutes, you can take that opportunity to learn to do it as a class. Was that our 1 minute, or is that time?
That's your 1 minute.
Oh, come learn it then so you can know how to do it. Okay. Here's your paper. Fold it in half. Fold it in half again. Unfold it. Fold it the other way. Unfold it. Okay, now with the fold at the top, take the top left corner, and from that middle, you're going to fold it down so that the point rests on that middle. Are you in the middle?
That middle.
Yep, that middle. Yes, perfect. Now fold this one back. Fold that one over. Then fold it back. And then you take your scissors from the point up to about 1.5 inches from the top. You've made your star.
Perfect star.
They're coming. We must run.
Ta-da! To make it absolutely perfect, you'd have to trim this down to 8 by 10 instead of 8.5 by 11.
Got it.
But this is close enough.
These are the instructions for. You want to?
Thank you.
You want to just read through that? We'll list it too. Well done, Mrs. Ross. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
You're quite a presenter.
Welcome, friends. Gather around.
Probably
You can
good.
come all the way over here so that everybody can see. Come, gather.
Now we're moving on to
All right.
Revolutionary War medicine. This is Rosemary Pollock, and Rosemary Pollock works with us as well. She has for many, many years. Rosemary who creates all of those on this day in his story mini lessons that are on Family School. Every day there's a new lesson, and she's created like 3 or 4 for every day of the year. She's remarkable. And her husband, Dr. Pollock, is here with us as well.
Existed in 1740. Now, Dr. Thomas Williams, that I'm going to introduce you to here, was a colonel and a physician in the French and Indian War. And he served and cared for the soldiers. He treated the gunshot wounds, all of their ailments. And he also lived in a town in Deerfield, Massachusetts, that was about an hour away from today, what we know as Boston. And so it's inland, and it's a beautiful town. It is. It had about 300 people at the time living in the town, and they were living in about 36 to 45 house lots that existed. So Dr. Williams, along with his apprentices, cared for those 300 people. He left twice to go serve in the French and Indian War. He served as a colonel for 2 years, and then came home when a treaty was signed, but it wasn't held, and then he returned again till 1763 when the war ended. So we have lots of fun things for you here, and we're going to explain the illnesses and medicines that were available. But one thing I want you to remember today is that these doctors were trained from books that existed in Europe. And these books were readily available in America during this time period. They were not isolated from the knowledge of Europe. And what happened is the knowledge of Europe, which was changing, medicine had been very formal, more of a theory and not a practice, was now turning and reversing into a practice combined with theory, and it advanced the treatment of illness. So welcome, Dr. Thomas Williams.
Medicine, as you know it today, is entirely different than it was in 1740. We believed in the humoral basis of disease, that health and strength of the body was resulting from the balancing out of blood and phlegm and bile, yellow and black. You may not even know what those are or even have heard of them. But it was my job as the doctor to balance them out, and I did this through a variety of things, through medications to stimulate purging, to vomiting as diuretics. I even used bloodletting, making small incisions on the wrist to alleviate and to balance out the blood flow and the blood volume. Another thing that I think you should know about medicine in 1740 was that my medications were all handmade. I made all of these in my kitchen in the back of my clinic. And I had large pots that I would mix and boil things down, render them down to their essence, and make ointments and salves, different types of Indian medications or herbs that were used.
How many men did you have helping you, Dr. Williams?
As apprentices, I always had one. I usually had one or two, and I had a total of 9 that I had actually apprenticed over the 20 years that I practiced. But there was a variety of things, from gunshot wounds to the common maladies of the fever. What do you think was the most common thing that I saw in my clinic every day and treated for? The good townspeople of Deerfield. What would you imagine would be?
Can you guess?
No guesses?
Common cold?
Other than the common cold, that was probably the most common. Worms. Worms were a major problem with people in 1740. And they got them from a variety of places, primarily their food. That they ingested them, and then the worms lived in their intestines. So it was our job to treat them and to eradicate the worms. And we primarily used arsenic and mercury. You know that arsenic and mercury are very, very poisonous, even fatal, lethal. So we did lose a few, but we killed all the worms. And I guess that's probably what's most important. I myself was apprenticed in Boston in 1740 and practiced for about 35 years. Do you have any questions I can answer for you? Yes.
Is that real arsenic?
No.
Okay.
Thank goodness for modern medicine, right?
Yes. Yeah. We didn't have hospitals. They were primarily clinics like mine in my hometown. There was a hospital that had just been built in Philadelphia that was a teaching hospital, but it wasn't until probably the early 19th century that hospitals became prominent and were places that people could go and have intense medication.
I also knew what cancer was as early as 1775. It's mentioned in a record.
Wow.
Thank you for
1755?
well, probably that early. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you, Rosemary. Or Dr. and Mrs.
Thank you. Williams.
Williams.
Williams, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think you can maybe overhear from even a few presentations ago that Patrick Henry's coming up. He's our next one. I don't know what his name is, but he's presented for several years. He does a great job.
All right, guys, come closer. Come closer. I don't have one of those fancy microphone things. Come closer. I did brush my teeth. Come closer. Closer. I'll get quieter if you come closer. 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 Okay, your job is to make sure there's no bugs crawling in my wig. Because last time a bug was crawling in my wig and nobody said anything. How embarrassing was that, to have a bug in my wig and nobody saying anything? If you see the bug, just get the bug. Okay, all right, cool. All right, my name is Patrick Henry Esquire. I was born in Virginia. We're younger than you. My mom and dad taught me how to farm the land, how to raise animals, collect eggs, how to milk cows, slaughter goats, how to pull the feathers off of a chicken. When I became your age, guess what I hated? Farming the land, collecting eggs, slaughtering goats. Hard work. I hated it. It was horrible work. So when I was about your age, I started my own store. And I would sell things like Temu and iPhone and all kinds of stuff in my store. Well, guess what happened? It didn't do very well. I lost my shirt. I went bankrupt. And at the age of 20 years old, I was in debt and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. A friend of mine said, hey, you like to defend people. Why don't you I got an idea for you. And he gave me a bunch of law books. And I took those law books and I went into my basement and I read every single one of those law books for 6 weeks. Memorized them. And at the end of that 6 weeks, I went and took the bar exam. One of the most difficult tests that you can take even today. And guess what happened? I passed. And I became Esquire, attorney at law. And I would basically get constituents out there who needed my protection. And I found that they did need it. King Richard had these thugs who were wearing these red coats and carrying muskets around, who would simply come into my home, or anyone's home, and have dinner, uninvited. They would sleep in our beds. They could choose what bedroom they wanted. They could take our TV. Well, we didn't have TVs back then. They could do anything that they wanted in our homes, and we did not like it. They even started to tax us. They started taxing foods. They taxed my favorite beverage. You know what my favorite beverage was? What was my favorite beverage? Tea. They started to tax my favorite beverage. In fact, I went to a party in Boston called
Boston Tea Party.
Yeah. I was irate with all the taxation that had taken place. We were trying our best to create a peaceful resolution with these red-coated thugs and King Richard. We even sent one of our representatives overseas. You've heard of him, Benjamin Franklin, where they treated him like crap. He came over and said, they're not buying it, guys. They're not going to let us do what we want. And we did everything we could to create a peaceful resolution. Well, it was during the Virginia Convention, where in 1775 I gave a rallying speech, where I talked about the importance that the colonists should decide on their own laws, the colonists should decide on their own taxation, the colonists should decide if we are going to have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the things that were imperative for us that King Richard was controlling from us. And at the end of my speech, I said the rallying cry, give me liberty or give me death. And it was at that moment that young George Washington, who was sitting out in the convention, and Thomas Jefferson, who was there as well, he was kind of a geeky guy, no one knew him really well, but he was out there as well. And they decided, yeah, this guy's right. And they started talking to the other founding fathers, and it's like, it's time. We're going to war. That was 1775. What happened in 1776?
Oh, Declaration of Independence.
Exactly. That's where the documentation started to take place, where we start claiming our own freedoms that we wanted. And it was because of the sheer tenacity and the oration of myself, Patrick Henry, that we decided it was time to take a stand and to challenge what was important to challenge and defend those things of freedoms that we wanted. Okay, anybody have any questions for me, Patrick Henry, before we learn the Patrick Henry dance? Go. Any questions? Come on, everybody's had at least one question. What's your question? Can you imagine this guy just reads for 6 weeks and he becomes an attorney? Anybody's mom or dad here an attorney? Anybody's?
Nope.
It costs thousands of dollars and years of study before he could be an attorney today. He did it in 6 weeks. And he didn't go to college. He didn't even get any loans. Can you imagine that? How amazing is that? Any other questions for Mr. Henry? By the way, Mr. Henry didn't like to read. Isn't that weird?
Oh,
Yeah, he didn't like to read. He read, I think he just read the law books and that was it. He liked to talk. He talked a lot, constantly. He was always verbose. Okay, no questions?
Yeah, let's do the dance.
All right, spread out, put your books down, get into a big space area. You want to make sure you've got equal space. Parents, teachers, you're invited as well to do the dance. Come a little closer. I'm going to do it once.
Students at home,
and then you guys are going to do it
get
the
up
second,
off the couch
third time. So
and
this is, so pay
let's do
attention
the-
the first time. Ready?
let's do the dance.
Watch me. Spread out a little bit more. You're going to
Patrick
need more
Henry
room.
dance.
I guarantee it. Here he goes. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give
Exactly
me death.
how he did it.
Okay, now you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Now, let's do it with passion. I want to really hear it. I want to see it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Okay, go to the next station.
Patrick Henry dance. That was Spence Bingham, by the way. I forgot his name. But. Well done, Mr. Bingham. Or Patrick. And now we're moving on to Nathan Hale, who was a Minuteman, I believe. And this is from the point of view of Nathan's mother. I don't know Nathan's mother, but she's presenting about Nathan Hale in this one.
Blanket up here.
This is Maria Dowder.
All right. Welcome, welcome.
The founders of Dowder Puzzles.
I am Elizabeth Stronghill. I am the mother of that valiant young man who stands on your campus, Nathan Hale. Nathan was born to my husband and I, Richard Hale, in 1755. Nathan was a good, strong boy, and he was born to our very religious family. My husband was a deacon. We loved God, and we loved our country that allowed us to worship him as we so choose, because in England that was becoming very difficult. We came here to worship God. He was a smart boy, and he went to college at the age of 14 with his older brother. He went to Yale University. He loved college. He and his best friend Benjamin Talmadge loved to join clubs and be a part of the sociality on campus. He graduated at the age of 18 and became a teacher in New London, Connecticut. This was a difficult time for our country, though. War was brewing. The British were becoming more and more oppressive. And we were not going to let that happen. Nathan and his best friend, Benjamin, they joined the army. They joined a regiment near our home. And within a short amount of time, Nathan became captain. Well, war broke. Benjamin was able to go. Nathan could not, because his contract had not expired for teaching. And the Battle of Bunker Hill commenced, and Nathan was left behind. And Benjamin had been in that battle. And as soon as he was done with his battle, Benjamin wrote a letter to Nathan, saying, Nathan, you must come as soon as you can. For our holy religion, the honor of our God, a glorious country, and a happy constitution, this is what we have to defend. And as soon as he could, Nathan, he joined Benjamin. And by this time they were in New York. The British had taken over New York, and it was intense. And General Washington came to his regiment, and he said, we need a volunteer. We need someone to go behind enemy lines, because we don't know where the British are going. We don't know where they're intending to attack next, and we've got to find out. You need to understand that if you are caught, they will take your life. Is there anyone willing to do this? My boy raised his hand. He took his diploma from Yale. He posed as a Dutch immigrant looking for work as a school teacher. While he was behind enemy lines, he ran into his cousin. He trusted his cousin. And he disclosed his true intention. His cousin immediately went to the British and told them, you have a spy. And he was captured within hours. He was taken to General Howe. General Howe questioned him, then sent him to a room to await his death. He was given a piece of paper and a pen to write me a letter. He wrote me a letter. The soldier came back, ripped the letter to pieces. I never got that letter. The next morning, they marched him down to City Park, to the gallows. I was told that he bore himself with gentle dignity At the gallows, he was asked to identify himself. He told them he was Captain Nathan Hale of the Continental Army. You are shedding the blood of the innocent, and that if I had 10,000 lives, I would lay them down, if called to it, in defense of my injured and bleeding country. His very last words were, I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country. And within minutes he was gone. We never found his body, so we designated a grave near our home to his honor. But they made him the hero of our state, the state of Connecticut. And to this day, a statue stands at that park where he was executed. I was honored to be his mother, and I only hope that you, his countrymen, will never forget his sacrifice for you. May you never forget it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallo. Let me show you this. Before we move on to the next station, I wanted to show you this this monument, the statue, the bronze that we put up here at the school. It was maybe 5 years ago, and we actually hoisted that during this Constitution Day festival that we're having right now in the evening. And there's a big fireworks show, and there continues to be one each day today. But we're the Patriots. I mean, I don't know if some of our students might know, but the mascot is a Patriot for HS and for HS Worldwide and for HS Salt Lake City. And well, that's our kind of mascot, Nathan Hale. Pretty remarkable bronze. It's like 1.5 times life size.
Nathan was born to his father and I, Richard,
we'll go into a presentation now about the freedom to vote. It's out of order, so I think I'm looking at my list, and
we love God.
If I had to guess, it's
we love our country.
Freedom to vote presentation.
Military parade. 500 men, light infantry, grenadiers, and Scottish Highlanders in traditional garb came on a parade. When they marched as they got up to Broad Street and they got in front of the Federal Hall, the military crowd parted, and through the avenue up came a state carriage. This carriage stopped in front of Federal Hall, and out stepped a tall man, white powdered wig, a brown suit, American made, and white silk stockings. He carried a sword. I myself have carried a sword. It was quilted into my skirt, but that's another story. George Washington himself stepped out. They went into the building. It took some time, perhaps because they had forgotten a Bible. So Mr. Livingston ran to the Masonic Lodge and brought one out. George Washington opened it to Genesis 49. Fortuitous, providential accident, or full knowledge of George Washington, you decide. Mr. Livingston administered the oath. It was on a balcony. Red and white cloths bedecked the balcony. As many as possible were to be eyewitness that day of the events unfolding. The first inauguration of the first president of these colonies, the United States of America. Mr. Otis held that Bible open. Mr. Washington placed his hand on the Bible and took the oath. When he had finished, he kissed the Bible. Mr. Livingston leaned over the balcony to the audience, and he shouted, "Long live George Washington, President of the United States of America." Did I vote? Do I look like a man to you? In America, the father votes for the family. Believe you me, Mr. Knox and I had discussions. People looked at me rather oddly sometimes because I had opinions of my own. But the father voted. Did you vote? Did you vote? Did you, young man? Did you? What did you? Why didn't you vote? school. Does your father vote for you also? Well, there you have it. So, consider what we were voting for. Consider that cause. Because in America, we bow to no king. God is our king. And if God is our king, then every one of us is equal in the eyes of God. And how do we govern if God is our king? What is our duty? What is our stewardship? How do you give your consent? How do you obey? Your sacred stewardship is that you vote, is that you serve, is that you raise families that will be moral and virtuous. And so consider a battle cry that you as patriots might give. As the afternoon wore on, the company, George Washington, led by the Episcopal bishop, went down to St. Paul's Church. At the church, outside among the tombstones, they knelt. In prayer, George Washington himself being voice, and he prayed that God would give prosperity and safety to this united nation, United States of America. And then, at dinner, Mr. Washington dined alone. But at night, in the dark, he and company sat at the house of Mr. Livingston, and at 9, yours truly, Lucy Knox, the general I hosted. Now I ask you, patriots, what will your future be as you exercise your God-given duty to give consent, to vote? What will your battle cry be? And let us vote on it, since you are freeborn, I am assuming. Would you like to say, come on, brave Mohawks, bring out the axes, tell King George we'll pay no taxes? Or do you want to say, give me liberty or give me death? Well, let's vote on it. All in favor of come on, brave Mohawks, say aye. Come on, brave Mohawks. Aye. Or give me liberty or give me death.
Aye.
Aye. Oh my goodness, let's try that one more time. Come on, brave Mohawks, all in favor. Aye. Give me liberty or give me death. Aye. All right. Let's do give me liberty on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Give me liberty or give me death. Ah, wonderful. I see a bright future ahead for you. Perhaps it might affect women more, or it might affect your slaves. I don't know, because the consent and the duty is up to you. And now, brave patriots, do I entertain any other battle cries? I'm willing to entertain suggestions from the citizens here. Do you have a better battle cry? What would you do for today? I see you need a little direction. How about this? We are the sons and daughters of liberty. We will stand for no tyranny. 1, 2, 3. We are the sons and daughters of liberty. We will stand for no tyranny. Farewell.
Thank you.
I heard her say.
Thank you, Mrs. Maddox. Okay, it looks like we're moving on to Oba Bonner, Frederick Douglass. He always had, look a picture up of Frederick Douglass as you're watching this one. You can see he had some pretty stylish hair. So it's a little bit different in this one. He's got it down today. This is Common Bonner.
I traveled through time, and it was really tough, so because it straightened my hair. Thank you very much. So, yes, this is what I look like, and I found some place to shave. So, hi, nice to see you. Frederick Douglass is my name. I will be speaking in the third person, meaning I will say, Frederick Douglass had this, Frederick Douglass experienced that, but really speaking about myself. Thank you very much. Okay, I will keep time here. You guys look like a smart group, so I have some smarties in front of me to check for understanding, to see if you are really listening to what I am saying. But thank you so much for being here. Frederick Douglass. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. I have the honor of sharing the incredible story of Frederick Douglass. a powerful speaker, a tireless advocate for abolition, and a champion of civil rights. His life is a testament of the human spirit and the relentless pursuit of justice. Frederick Douglass was born in February 1818 in Talbot County, Maryland. He was the son of an enslaved mother and an unknown white father. From a young age, he experienced the brutal realities of slavery firsthand, witnessing the violence and the dehumanization that enslaved people endured. These early experiences would ignite a fierce resolve within him, a determination to seek freedom, not only for himself, but for all enslaved individuals. In 1838, Douglass made a daring escape from slavery, adopting a new name to protect his identity. He settled in Massachusetts, where he became involved in the abolitionist movement, and it was there that he found his voice and his calling. Douglass quickly emerged as a leader to fight against slavery, using his life story as a powerful tool to advocate for change. What set Douglass apart was his extraordinary ability for speaking and writing. His autobiography, The Narrative of Frederick Douglass, the American Slave, published in 1845, was groundbreaking. It revealed the harsh realities of slavery and captivated audiences, both black and white. Through his eloquent words, Douglass laid bare the injustices of his time and called for immediate action. He became a sought-after speaker, delivering passionate speeches to countless of individuals to take a stand against slavery. In addition to his work in the abolitionist movement, he co-founded the North Star, which was an abolitionist newspaper that provided a platform for discussing issues of freedom and inequality. He worked alongside William Lloyd Garrison and was not afraid to challenge the norms of his time. Beyond abolition, he recognized the connection of injustice, even for women's rights. Later in life, Douglass held public offices such as the U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia and continued to fight for civil rights until his passing in 1895. His legacy is profound, serving as a beacon of hope and inspiration for the ongoing struggle for inequality, reminding us that the fight of oppression is far from over. As we reflect on the life of Frederick Douglass, we are reminded of his powerful assertion that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. These words challenge us to recognize that the pursuit of justice requires relentless effort and unwavering commitment. In honoring Douglass's legacy, let us pledge to fight for equality and civil rights for all individuals, regardless of background. Thank you for allowing me to share this remarkable story of a true American hero, of Frederick Douglass. Thank you. Hey. All right. Checking for understanding. What year was he born? Yes.
1818.
1818. So good. Tell me about what paper did he create? Yes? The North Star. Well done. Okay. What year did he die? 1895. Well done. Okay. Ooh. I'll save the harder one for just a moment. Okay. Tell me about his parents. Yes.
He was born to a black woman that was enslaved, and we don't know who his white father was.
That's right. That's correct. An unknown white father. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well done. Okay. So, why did he change his name? Yes.
So that his identity wouldn't be recognized.
Thank you. When he escaped from slavery, yes, he didn't want it to be recognized and then be brought back into slavery. Thank you. You ready? Okay, thank you. Awesome. Tell me something else you know about Frederick Douglass. Did you already answer? Okay, I'm gonna jump here.
He published a book.
He published a book. What was the name of the, or not name, well, what kind of book was it?
Told stories. It talked about the
It did. It was an autobiography of his life talking about the struggles of slavery, which captivated and captured everybody. Thank you so much. One last thought. Excellent. Well done. Guys, thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you, Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Yes.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you.
And he had great hair.
Yes, he did. Traveling through time.
Especially when he straightened it. Let it down.
I mean, the hair was a nice hair.
Okay, well, that was 10. And so this is the last one. This is 11. And let's see. Can't remember what it... Let's see here. Last one is Ellis Island and Immigration by Jenny Theobald. Or Theobald. Ellis Island and Immigration. Hope you've enjoyed our little tour through his story today.
This is a picture of my family, and my family was a very religious and God-fearing family. My father's name, in fact, this is my father seated right here with a beard. My father's name was Gottlieb, which stands for God's love in German. We read the Bible, we observed the commandments, we kept the Sabbath day holy, and we participated regularly in the Swiss Reform Protestant church in our village. In our village we had a unique situation where the government was also the religious leaders. This is a piece of land that my father managed for the government. There are 5 big tracts of land, and he was also what we call the Wassermeister. He was the water master. He took care of the water, the drinking water, and also the water to irrigate the crops for everyone. At the top of our village, right at the base of the Nissen, is what we have the Schlosser. This is the Schlosser, which means the castle. And this is the Kirche, the church. This is where the children would attend school every day, year round. Well, not on Sunday. Sunday we had Sunday school. But we went to school year round. Half day in the summer, full day in the winter, and we had a little time off in the fall for harvest for our families. Our ministers were also our political leaders, so our religious leaders were in charge of the government. In 1898, a curious thing happened. Some handsome young men from America came to our village, called missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they said they had a message for us from God. Some of the adults were very skeptical of them because, of course, the government and everyone were all unified, and there was no different religion in our village. But as children we were curious, and we would go and talk with them regularly. And one day my little brother Fritz came down with a terrible sickness, and he had sores all over his face. Nothing could be done. No doctors, nothing could make it better. We did not know what to do. And someone said, "You should talk to the Mormons." And we invited the elders to our home and said, "Can you help us?" And they said, "Yes, we can do a blessing of healing." They did, and immediately before our eyes my brother was healed. This was a manifestation for my parents of God's love for their family, and they decided to listen to their message. We met in secret for months, and we had a secret Sunday school in our home until eventually we decided to be baptized. And we chose to be baptized in secret at night time so no one would know. At the end of 8th grade, it is graduation time for the students, and they will enter adulthood and their professions. In the springtime at graduation, everyone would gather in the village, and the children would take large bundles of flowers, and they would parade through the town congratulating the graduates. And then the graduates would make their way all the way up to the Schlosser, where then the minister of our village would give them the sacrament in the Swiss church for their first time. Well, we had been taking the sacrament in our home with the Church of Jesus Christ. So we could not partake of this other sacrament, so we abstained. This caused an uproar in the village. The ministers were very angry, and they came to our house and talked to our parents in a very stern fashion, telling us that horrible things were going to befall all of us children because we had been baptized in a different church. But we stood firm in our faith,
and we knew we had done the right thing. Then the persecution started. Persecution for my father at work, children being unkind in the streets, neighbors criticizing us and sabotaging our land. And then also school became very uncomfortable and unpleasant for us because our teachers worked for the minister and for the religious government. It was very difficult. Even though in Switzerland in 1848 we'd been granted religious tolerance for all Christian denominations, they said that we were not Christian and therefore we deserved to be persecuted. We did not know what to do. We asked the missionaries and they said, come to America, come to Zion. In America, the Constitution protects our right to have religious expression. Congress protects our freedom. We wanted this freedom. So we sold everything that we had, even our home. This is a picture of our home. Our names are inscribed on the house. And to this day, this house still stands. If you go to Switzerland and to Wimmes, you will see this house. It's by the Wassermeister's place. We sold everything, took a train to Germany, and then took a boat to America where we would be free. We not only wanted to be free, we also wanted to go through the temple, and there were no temples in Switzerland. This is the Statue of Liberty. Many people immigrated, came through Liberty Harbor, and landed at Ellis Island, where they received this message from the great lady. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That was us. This is a picture of people being processed at Ellis Island. When they go through and are being processed, they are met with people who could speak their language. My brother Fritz got very nervous and started to cry, and all the sores from having measles on the trip over started to show up on his face again. When you're processed here, you must be healthy, you must not be a criminal, and you must not have anything illegal in your baggage. And unfortunately for us, we looked sick, so they made us be quarantined for 2 weeks, and our group left without us. We had to cross America by ourselves, not speaking any English. It was terrifying. But finally we arrived in Idaho, where many of the Swiss landed, in a place called Montpelier. And from there we made our way up to a little town where we still stay today, called Coltman. And then eventually we were able to go to Logan to be sealed as a family in the temple. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be an American. My sons have all fought for the military and served missions and defended this country and the things it stands for. I hope as you grow, you will also defend the principles and the values that we hold dear in America, because it makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Magdalena.
Well, we have maybe we saved the best for last. That was awesome. That was pretty remarkable. Thank you for being with us today. This is a really fun tour through his story, like I said, and learning just a little bit about just a few of the great men and women of our history, and those people and the sacrifices, in many cases, many sacrifices, in other cases, contributions, but in the case of many of these sacrifices that have been made, and from many others that allow us to be able to have the kind of school and education that we have today, enjoy the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy, and certainly the expression of faith and religion and education that's so important to us at American Heritage School, and that is such a tremendous blessing, not just to you, but to all these students here at this campus and other campuses, and many students to come in years to come. So happy Constitution Day. Thank you for being with us.